Welcome to my podcast, right, Tellis?
Thank you very much. How many days do you have for this?
I am ready.
Oh, just asking. Yeah, but it's a pleasure. It's a privilege to be here.
How do you still keep that excitement going?
I don't know how else to say it, Mareesha, but I've always followed my passion. Kind of go with the flow, so to speak. The show must go on, as people say.
And your love for the stage does.
Yes, I got
Carried
stories
on.
and stories and stories there. I live very close to Mehboob studio, and I was a young teenager. I got called to audition for a play. The play was called Barbed Wire Blackboard. There was this young writer from National College called Imtiaz Khan, and it was going to be directed by his young brother called Amjad Khan.
Why do we fail theatre in India? And that's not the case necessarily internationally.
Theatre isn't part of the cultural currency of our country. We'll pay any amount to go and see an IPL game, a Hindi film or an international film. Nothing wrong with that. Now we are opening up to the concert economy.
True.
Whether it is the Coldplays and the Dua Lipas and the soon-to-be Guns N' Roses and all of that.
When you were in your entire phase of decades of Fountainhead, how did you kind of strike that balance to be able to be the businessman and the boss?
That Fountainhead was not just a solo effort. We started off with 3 of us. Yes, I was sitting pretty much in the driver's seat, and there were huge learnings. And when I look back on that, there are still, things that I would have done differently maybe.
What would be that one event which would bring that smile on your face to make you still feel proud that, oh, we did that?
Having the gumption to create an IP for a brand, it stretches from Mahindra Blues to Celebrate Bandra to Aadyam Theatre.
Yeah.
So I can't pinpoint one, but the broader and the larger decision to actually have the gumption to create something that belonged to the brand or to the client is really something that I hold on to dearly.
You know something? I have always been in love with the stage. I think I was born to be on stage, and I have led my life with that belief. And that keeps me excited all the time. My guest in this episode is somebody who has had that love in common, besides Bandra, of course. You're somebody who I can really look up to and have because of the simple fact that it's been a very similar journey of both of us having loved theatre, done theatre, anchored shows, become entrepreneurs. And of course, his life itself has been a journey that one can write a book about. A master of several traits, a person who is a true believer. I think every single day that he has led his life has been nothing short of a great example of how one can truly live the moment 100% and conquer, achieve, and move on to the next. Isn't that what This Show Must Go On is all about? It's going to be a tell-all tale, and you have to listen up to this one, as it is one of the most popular personalities from the Indian event industry. I'm chatting with Tellis.
My director just said mood and action. My mood is so upbeat, I cannot tell you, because I have kind of, imagined this moment several times when I have been on this couch and when I've been preparing myself for this podcast. Me being a person who's been on stage, I think I really love and respect anyone who started their journey first on stage, then off stage. But here is someone who's been on, off, on, off, on, off. Even today, he's come from a studio having recorded something. I want him to tell us all. Welcome to my podcast, right, Tellis?
Thank you very much. How many days do you have for this?
I am ready.
Oh, just asking. Yeah, but it's it's a pleasure. It's a privilege to be here
Oh.
and kind of shoot the breeze with you, yeah, Mareesha. Really.
No, I tell you genuinely, Brian, every time I've had a chance to talk to you, it's always been a situation that you are up to something. You're like this restless soul and eager child who's ready to cling to everything that, you can get your hands on. Tell me, how do you still keep that excitement going?
Yeah, I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
It's good. It's
Because
good.
there are only 24 hours in the day. But no, on a serious note, I don't know how else to say it, Mareesha, but I've always followed my passion. I've always followed my heart. So it's not been as difficult as it seems now.
Really?
Yeah, it honestly hasn't. I can't remember, kind of worrying about how I'd be able to do it. I kind of go with the flow, so to speak.
Hmm.
The show must go on, as people say.
As people say.
Yeah, so I mean, I've just followed my heart, and that's it. I still do.
You do? And how? Like this morning also you have been recording something. You're still on with your radio show. You're still on with emceeing. I was so shocked, Daddy, when we were chatting and you said that you've done the MIVs for 25 years. Like there's got to be something special and spectacular within you for you to stay so upbeat and for people to want you, more importantly.
That's a loaded statement.
You know how it is.
I don't know how much people want me, but I get your drift. No, so like I said, I often think about this myself
Yeah.
because I've been, thrown, a few lines at off and on saying, "Oh, you've done so much, so why do you still anchor?" And I'm going, what has one got to do with the other?
Nice.
And the likes. How come you
Mhm.
still go on stage? Because you're dealing with entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, one has very little to do with the other, except that I do believe that I love the lights.
Hmm.
I love being, kind of on stage. Whatever I'm called to do.
Nice.
Short of dancing, I have two left feet.
We'll make you do that today. I ain't sparing you.
Yeah, especially dancing to other people's tunes. No, I'm
Tunes.
kidding. I'm kidding. But no, I'm not. Yeah. So the spoken word and, the singing and all of that is something that is really close to my heart. And
Yeah.
I still kind of follow it
Hmm.
and do it to the best I can.
Yeah.
The tough bit is actually taking that proverbial, honest look in the mirror and figuring
Hmm.
when enough is enough for you,
Oh,
for me.
yes.
Yeah, because sometimes
True.
people, maybe me as well, you tend to wallow
Hmm.
in, people saying nice things
Yeah.
like you.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes you kind of, you're not as honest with yourself as you need to be.
Hmm.
So,
Interesting.
yeah, it's important to kind of self-evaluate, for another way to say it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and figure if you're still up to it, not just through your lens,
Yeah.
but through the lens of honest people around you. So,
Yeah.
that's something I try and do every twice in a while.
Oh, you do.
But at my tender age, I'm still doing it. And this is not an apology, just in case I'm sounding like it.
Not at all. I think by far you're a person who has always lived up to what you have done and stood by your decisions in life. For me, what's truly remarkable is the fact that you're able to keep that artist in you alive. A lot of us may have got drifted away because there are monetary gains and there are other gains that one is seeking for, but you've kept that artist and that zing alive in you all the time. Does that have to also do with the people that you surround yourself with?
Well, yes, I'll come to the people I surround myself with. That's a really interesting aspect. But I also want to reiterate here that money is important.
Hmm.
It's not that I disassociate myself,
Yeah.
because I've spent, my life, a large part of it as an entrepreneur as well,
Yeah.
where, you're in charge of the P&L. Good, bad, ugly is, perspective. So it's important to actually understand the value of money.
Hmm.
But I do believe that you need to kind of introspect and figure who you are.
Hmm.
Someone once told me something really interesting, and they said, if you follow your passion
Hmm.
with focus,
Hmm.
the universe kind of conspires to put everything else in place, including money.
Wow.
And it's debatable, there are ups and downs,
Yeah.
but it's more or less proved to be
Yeah.
true in my case.
I can find that relatability over there. Although when it comes to money, I have to say, because my partner is much better at that aspect, I'm able to run my organization. Otherwise, I feel perhaps the artistic side of me kind of takes over and you get carried away in that journey. When you were, in your entire, phase of decades of Fountainhead, how did you kind of strike that balance to be able to be the businessman and the boss and get a mentor? I know everyone who's worked at Fountainhead, whomever I may have interacted with, they've always looked up to you. And even if they've not worked under you directly and they know of you, they've looked up to you because they see you as a very generous person who's ready to help, who's ready to give, who's ready to share.
Yeah.
So how did you strike that balance?
So let me first start by saying, while I tend to be given a lot of the credit for Fountainhead, and I'm happy about it,
Yeah.
that Fountainhead was not just a solo effort. I mean, we started off with 3 of us,
Yeah.
and then eventually when we got bought into and bought over, we were 6 of us. So I first have to place on record that, yes, I was sitting pretty much in the driver's seat.
Yes.
But it wasn't just me. So,
Hmm.
and there were huge learnings. And when I look back on that, there are still, things that I would have done differently, maybe.
Oh,
But to answer your question about people,
yeah.
I think if you exude the right kind of vibe,
Yeah.
you invite the right kind of vibe and emotions. And I mean this, I'm not just trying to sound, right prescription types.
Yes.
It actually happens. I mean, you could be someone that I can have a certain conversation with.
Hmm.
And if I exude a certain kind of, whether it is warmth or information or genuineness,
Hmm.
I will get that same back
Yeah.
at you. I will get that honesty. I will get that relevant conversation and advice from you. And I thrive on that.
Wow.
I really thrive on that. I mean, I've always believed, and I think my erstwhile partners in Fountainhead have also believed
Hmm.
and still do,
Hmm.
that it was more than just a P&L.
Hmm.
We were building and truly building a warm organization.
Wow.
I've got to say that a lot stemmed from the fact that we believed that so firmly that you would never hear any one of us call other people our employees.
Hmm.
It was always colleagues.
Nice.
And it's still colleagues, because not just because we're trying to be nice to everyone
Yeah.
or whatever, it's because everyone plays a role.
Yeah.
I know I'm sounding idealistic. I know at times you've got to be real, you've got to be hard,
Yeah.
you've got to be firm. But I believe you can be hard without being rude.
True.
I can say the same thing to you in 2 different ways,
Hmm.
and either earn your respect, or you'll end up thinking, man, this guy's taking himself way too seriously just because he's designated what he is.
Yeah.
So these are learnings along the way, but I, yes, tend to surround myself with people whom I am also comfortable with.
Hmm.
And like I said, that kind of tends to permeate into different areas of life.
Hmm.
And friends end up becoming advisors, and you end up becoming friends with people who work around you. So
True.
the lines get blurred between professional from a business point of view
Yeah.
and personal point of view. And I love that.
Tell me, there's a commonality, a couple of things. In fact, when we were chatting, I realized that we have in common. Of course, you went on to achieve much more than I have yet been able to. One is our love for Bandra. So I'm going to take you to flashback mode. Bandra being the place, I think that perhaps had, I think, the best of talent for some reason. And with all my friends, I've grown up, studied in St. Joseph's and grown up with the hardcore Bandraites. Although Warren tends to remind me that I don't belong to Bandra because I stay in Reclamation, which was a reclaimed land. He's like, that was not Bandra. I was like,
Almost all of Bandra is reclaimed.
yeah,
Tell Warren.
Yeah, I will. In fact, Warren also, when he was a guest on the podcast, he happened to mention to us about how he had come to your office and he had come with a brochure to show you all what all he has got in terms of the inventory. And this is like his baby steps of getting somewhere in life. But coming back to Bandra, tell me, what does Bandra mean to you to begin with?
I'm tempted to ask again, how much time do you have for this one?
Kal
But
aaj.
no, but Bandra, as you are aware, is where I was born and brought up. And I'm told even conceived. Don't know about that though. But Bandra is home in capitals.
Mhm.
What do I mean? I mean, Bandra was this, or is this beautiful suburb
Yeah.
where, life came full circle. Whoever you were,
Hmm.
however talented you were or otherwise, however rich you were or otherwise,
Hmm.
there was a common approach to people around you.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to say this. And while at one time it was almost scoffed at,
Hmm.
oh, you come from Bandra, which means, the back of beyond.
Yes.
Human nature, I suppose.
Yeah.
It then, we instilled a sense of belief
Hmm.
in what the suburbs stood for and who the people were and what they stood for.
Yeah.
And one of the primary examples is, back in 1993, we sowed the seeds of, the idea of the festival Celebrate Bandra.
Oh, that
Yeah.
was in 93.
Yes. In 93, we sowed the seeds and we got, along with some very, very key people, we got the resident associations together
Hmm.
and we founded what is a festival that runs
Yes.
to date,
Yes.
30 years and counting later.
Wow.
So it was the belief. You played sport.
Hmm.
There were enough grounds, both public and private, that you could indulge yourself in.
Yeah.
If you were a performing arts kind of lover, there were a fair few opportunities that you could indulge in.
Yeah.
I'd like to believe that one of the things that actually gave me life in the performing arts and entertainment field was a system we call the zonals,
Hmm.
which is Catholic oriented, where, the different churches or parishes of Bandra ran something called the zonals, which was a competition of sorts with different age groups.
Hmm.
And it, embraced vocals, classical and non-classical, instrumentals, theater, duets and quartets, choirs,
Hmm.
and theater.
Hmm.
Now, of course, we've grown it to the elocutions and dance and stuff. But this phenomenon we call the zonals actually gave us an opportunity to introspect and develop ourselves. Because what we sometimes didn't realize was it's not just about conventional education.
Hmm. Hmm.
Life is about indulging in passion points, and that makes a better you out of you. Now I'm using long phrases and all.
No,
At that
but
time, we it's a 67-year-old institution as we
Wow.
speak, Mareesha. And if we can have our way, it's all Bandra today.
Hmm.
Hopefully, in the coming years, it'll be an all Mumbai.
Oh, yes.
These are things that help develop community,
Yeah.
develop commonality
Yeah.
amongst community, where you leave all your baggage at home.
Yeah. We're all a
Yeah.
room of equals.
Yeah. When you meet at a ground, no one really cares beyond a point about
Yeah.
how educated you are or not, or how rich you are or not.
Yeah.
You meet, you hang, you shoot the breeze with the pack, and then you go back home to your pros and cons in your head.
In your head. But that also became a great platform for nurturing talent, also finding talent
Yes.
that then people decided to take it up professionally, whether it was dance or art or
Yes.
music, whatever be the case. And your love for the stage does.
Yes, I got
Carried
stories and
on.
stories and stories there. In fact, I must dwell on one. I live very close to Mehboob studio, and in the
Yeah.
zonals, I was a young teenager, and I got called to audition for a play.
Uh-huh.
I was doing I'd done a couple of other plays before that. I was in my mid-late teens, I think.
Hmm.
And I got called to audition for the zonal play. And there was this young writer from National College called Imtiaz Khan. And it was going to be directed by his young brother called Amjad Khan.
The actor.
Yes. Who was Amjad Khan and Imtiaz Khan from opposite Mehboob Studios. And I'm just taking you back where the play was called Barbed Wire Blackboard, where I got a part in the play, but I had no lines.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a prisoner of war camp. And I remember Roger Drago. No one knew what a strobe was. And he used a strobe. I'm talking the year before Sholay, so I'm talking mid-70s.
70s, yeah.
Where Roger used the strobe for visual effect of gunfire. It was a German prisoner of war camp story that Imtiaz had written about. Why I'm telling you this story is, he got Sholay that same year or the next year and went on to become the legendary Amjad Khan and Imtiaz Khan.
Yeah.
And like them, the zonals have provided a platform for people to figure who they are beyond how educated you are. And even education doesn't necessarily mean only degrees.
Yeah.
Education embraces every form, every art form, every aspect of life. And Bandra offered these things. You could hang out on a Sunday and go to Supari Talao.
Yeah.
Which is common ground. You'd have about 10 or 15 cricket games happening simultaneously.
Absolutely.
Side by side. And you would also have the tournament, the football tournament, of local clubs and whatever.
Yeah.
So I think, that's what kind of got injected that desire to be yourself and to fulfill aspirations that went beyond professional.
And then you also go on to make a lot of friends.
Yes.
And meet the right kind of people, like-minded people.
Yes.
And I think you were venturing into several plays that you ended up doing, even in the 80s.
Yeah.
And performing at
You're determined
various,
for people to find out how old I am, right?
Brian.
No, I'm kidding. But yeah, the zonals led us to doing a wonderful Rice and Weber musical called Joseph and His Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. That was back in 1979. And then did loads of one-act theatre in between, but then ended up doing the narrator in Greece, with Shamak and Sunita playing Sandy and Danny. Ended up doing Perron and Evita under the legendary Alec Padamsi. Replacing Keith Stevenson. And then, of course, over the years, did a few more musicals. I think in the more recent past, 2015, did Lumiere and Beauty and the Beast. And then, of course, Sing India Sing 2019. So, I mean, the performing arts journey has been wonderful.
But tell me, Brian, at that time, obviously, theatre didn't pay much. Not the situation has unfortunately
Did you use the past tense? Didn't pay much?
I was just completing my line. The situation hasn't changed much, unfortunately. What do you think? Why do we fail our theatre artists, and why do we fail theatre in India? And that's not the case necessarily internationally.
Yeah. So a couple of things. One is theatre isn't part of the cultural currency of our country. We'll pay any amount to go and see an IPL game. Nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
We'll pay any amount of money for a wonderful meal.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. We'll pay any amount of money to go see a wonderful Hindi film or an international film. Nothing wrong with that. Now, we are opening up to the concert economy.
Yes.
Where people are now starting to get open, be open to watching a great concert.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen it in the recent past. I don't have to wax eloquent. I mean,
true.
Whether it is the Coldplays and the Dua Lipas and the soon-to-be Guns N' Roses and all of that. And even the festivals. I mean, Lollapalooza is here and Bandland and a whole host of other stuff. Speaking of theatre, I think that's a really pertinent point you raise. Theatre still hasn't become part of this cultural currency I talk about. But I have a great hope. I mean, you are aware that in my erstwhile company, we started Aadyam Theatre for the Aditya Birla Group.
Yeah.
And it's in its 7th year, of performances, and in its 9th year, And I got to tell you, over the weekend, yesterday and day before, we had 3 sold out shows at Bal Gandharva Rang Mandir. To me, that put a smile on my heart
Yeah. Yeah.
because we were up against the opening of the IPL.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And Arijit Singh
Arijit.
performing. And yet we had 3 sold out shows.
Yeah.
So I think to answer your question, we need to up the ante as far as the product is concerned. First, I do believe that we need to educate or upskill, maybe is a better word to say,
Yeah.
to upskill our talent, not just the ones we see on stage, but the talent that actually helps the production values. So that could be stage management, costuming, sound, lights,
Yes.
direction, as far as theatre is concerned.
True.
Because I think it's a coming together of all of these aspects, of the talent aspect, backstage and on stage.
On stage.
And very importantly, it's about romancing the potential buyer.
Yeah.
And that is a process that has no definition, right? Because we live in a city and indeed a country which has varied sensibilities.
True. True.
So,
It's too diverse to
does
capture.
one do it in Hindi? Does one do it in English? Does one do it in Marathi? Being in what? But these are all things that are manageable.
True. True.
So, to answer your question, the 2 sides. One is the upscaling or upskilling of the people and the product. And 2 is actually romancing the consumer. And I think the process is on its way. And hopefully, over the next 2 to 3 to 4 years, maybe we'll see an upswing in theatre and theatre lovers.
Oh my.
Yeah.
I so look forward to that phase.
I know.
Because I used to love doing theatre. And I think at very early, age, I got an opportunity to work in a Hosi Vasunya production. And I performed at Sophia's, and then we would go for recordings. And, I got exposure to the studio, and I felt like, wow, this is what I want to do all my life. And, my sister would give me greeting cards, and she was an artist, a great painter. So she'd always draw a stage and say, this is where I see you, this is where I see you. And as, life has to have it, you start equating everything with the financial gain. And that's when you start reflecting and you're like, maybe stage, but maybe cannot pursue it right now because it doesn't seem the right time to be able to grow.
May I interject?
Please do.
You're absolutely right. And I want to endorse that it is important to put the food on the table, so to speak, which calls for finance, right?
Yeah.
But I'd like to, at the cost of indulging myself,
sure,
I'd like to reiterate a fact which I kind of, did.
Yeah.
So, yes, I took up a job. I love travel. I was an airline person. And then, like I said, back in 95, we co-founded a experiential company, or event management company.
Yeah.
And did 30 years of that But the important thing is that I never let the performing arts lover in me die. So, again, I might sound like I'm indulging myself, and maybe I am, but to prove a point, I've been on radio, FM radio from day one, August 15, 93. And we are sitting in 2025 and I'm still on radio.
Yeah.
I'm still anchoring stuff like we spoke about earlier. Not all the stuff I used to do, but a fair amount of stuff.
Sure.
I'm still anchoring stuff. Now, these are I still sing.
No.
I mean, I come from a jingle era where we'd be recording jingles in various studios in the city, the 4Ds and whatever else. I still sing. I may not do jingles anymore, but I'm still singing. I sang a couple of days ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for our dear friend Carlton Briganza's Jukebox Jammies.
Oh.
He started doing something on the first day of the lockdown.
Right.
And we celebrated 5 years a couple of days ago of the lockdown. And we did a show at St. Andrews, which was full.
Fantastic.
Just celebrating. And we all kind of came together, sang a bit, spoke a bit. So the larger point being that because you've got to have a regular job, whatever regular job means, it doesn't mean you cease to be the person you are. So in case you didn't read between the lines, Mareesha, go back to stage, go back to theater.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't mean one or the other.
It doesn't mean one or the other. I did a very silly thing. I actually, the second part was silly. The former was fun. I was kind of co-directing a musical for a wedding event. This I'm saying about 7-8 years back. One of the actors in that, and Catholics and Parsis and Gujaratis, they've still at least kept the theater industry alive, I'd say. So he said, we do a play annually on Parsi New Year, and that's a big deal. So would you like to act in it? And he had no idea that I have a theater background. He just took his chance, and I went on to do something. But somehow I could not switch off from the entrepreneur in me, and I kept wondering, somebody in the audience is going to see and be like, what is Mareesha doing on stage? I did it once, and I never went back. I was dreading, to switch off. It's difficult. Because sometimes you are doing things to please people, perhaps, or carry on with an image that you have created. Whereas I see you on this side of the couch and you're living at your own terms. It's phenomenal.
Isn't that the best way to do it? Isn't that the right way to do it?
It is.
Oh, let me tell you, it's not easy. There are, like I said earlier, only 24 hours in the day.
Yeah.
And it's not the easiest to kind of do everything you love and be a professional. But it is possible. And yeah, sometimes you got to make some hard decisions.
Yeah.
And maybe it will weigh one way or the other. I get that. But that, in my estimation, is a happy problem.
Yeah.
And the upside is you never lose touch with who you are. You never lose touch. I mean, I know life's about people.
Yeah.
And so me connecting with Mareesha is very precious, as is connecting with whoever else. And that can only happen if you hang out with people. I'm not saying you just hang out aimlessly with people.
Right.
Yeah. And keep an ear open. I think that's another bimari we have. I certainly had. And I'm hoping it's past tense, had.
Had? What is that?
Where I'm a bit of a jabberbox, right? And I tend to talk too much for my age, size, everything.
No, that's an MC problem, All master of ceremonies don't know when to.
Yeah, but that's an excuse.
Don't say that.
Yeah.
That's my only excuse.
No, you just lost it.
Oh, damn.
But, I think it's as important, if not more important, to be a good listener. And I don't mean just hear. I mean listen. Which is, I don't want to make it sound any more than it is, but, it's about listening to not just people around you. It's about listening to the world around you. And, not being afraid to admit who you are, who you aren't. I'll give you an example. I'm not technologically savvy. And I'm saying it.
Fair.
To whoever's listening and whoever's around this room as we speak. But I'd be stupid if I didn't follow what people do and try and learn a little bit.
Yes.
I might not become as tech savvy as him or her.
Yeah.
But if I improve, hey, I'm doing myself a fair bit of a favor, So, I try and find the time to do that as well. Get into areas that are relevant to me that I'm not the best at, whether it's business or otherwise. Even in business, in the entrepreneurial days, there were a lot of areas that I wasn't the best at. I wasn't comfortable with.
Tell me something like what?
Yeah, I'll tell you. So I was not the best operationally as I was, let's say, in the macro planning.
Sure.
I was reasonably good at being out there, and you want to call it marketing or you want to call it business development.
Yeah.
I'm an out there person.
Yeah.
So I was reasonably good at that, but I lost touch with being operationally savvy, including financially. I'll never forget, I got once told, and it resonates with me deeply unto this day, and I suspect will stay, is, I got told once saying, don't forget that with designation and power comes responsibility. And there's no excuse if you're a CEO or an MD or a chairman or whatever else. There's no excuse for you not knowing the down and dirty details. And I have thought about it. I still think about it all
Oh,
the time. Not easy, right?
yeah.
Because you
So true.
think you're looking at the larger picture and you're trying to make a successful venture out of this business that you've committed to. But hey, do you know what A and B and C are going through on a day to day? And I'm not just talking about emotional things. I'm talking
Sure.
about business things.
Hmm.
Do you know what it takes for your business development team or your client servicing team to do their best?
No.
Have you empowered them? Have you created a good org chart? I mean, that of course is primary responsibility, but have you got into, the real meat of the matter?
No.
You don't need to do every bit. You have to
Yes.
empower people, and that's how organizations are built.
Yeah.
But empowering people doesn't end your responsibility.
Oh my.
Yeah, I mean, so these are learnings
Yeah.
in entrepreneurship that I hold precious.
And how do you learn this? Like the newer set of entrepreneurs are always kind of wanting a chance. And today we have a lot of pep talk and TED talk and motivational speeches, etc. But back then, when you created Fountainhead and y'all all were on a self-learning mode, the industry was not formulated yet. We didn't know how much of it is for real or is it just a phase. How did y'all kind of learn through that journey? And
Yeah.
how do you think somebody could do it today much faster?
So how did we learn? I mean, a few of us were airline people and aviation people, and over discussions, we figured that there was a lack of cohesive decision making at the brand level,
Hmm.
and we figured that we'd do ourselves and the kind of universe around us a favor
Huh.
if we actually got together and created some kind of an offering
Okay.
that became a creative kind of segue between buyer and seller. I mean, I'm making it sound a little more profound than our thoughts were 30 plus years ago. But yeah, we figured that let's give it a shot.
Okay.
And there were just one or two other such manifestations at that time.
Huh.
And we gave it a shot. And I've actually got asked on a couple of times at least,
Huh.
and I'm not going to say it as impolitely as we heard it, but you got asked, why do we need, what is this event management agency thing? We have an admin department that does everything for us. So
Yeah.
what is it that y'all are going to bring
Y'all
to
are
the
good.
table?
Hmm.
And we had to explain to them in our own little simple, kind of language that,
Huh.
we were playing that creative kind of glue between
Hmm.
them and their potential market or whatever else it was. And that's grown, right? I mean, from why do I need you to being a conduit to being
Yeah.
what?
Completely.
A planner and a strategist now
Yes.
for a brand and, and whatever. And it went one further then. So to answer your question, we grew along the way by learning from our mistakes
Hmm.
or analyzing our successes, if I can call it that.
Yeah.
What made it work?
Yeah.
What made it work? And we found out that relationships with brands and brand custodians go a long way. I mean, because today it's invite 7 or 8 agencies.
Yes.
So coming to your second bit of the question, as in, what does it take?
Yeah.
And this is purely subjective.
Okay.
Okay. I think sometimes we, and I include myself maybe, or the erstwhile me,
Yeah.
as trying to be everything to everyone.
Hmm.
I think today, if I were to embrace a single word,
Huh.
it would be collaboration.
Hmm.
So today, we want to be an IP creator, we want to be a sports agency,
Yeah.
a business agency. I mean, we want to be everything to
We want
everyone, right?
Yes. Yes.
A travel agency. And we've been the same. Huh?
Hmm.
I'm not preaching.
Okay.
Or maybe I am, but having learned from my misdeeds. But figure who you are.
Hmm.
It's amazing that not very many agencies today, because I'm into the whole training mode now.
Yeah.
And I figure that not many agencies even do a SWOT analysis of who they are.
Wow.
I mean, have we stopped to think about what our strengths are, what our weaknesses
So
are, opportunities,
true.
whatever, threats, and then work on building on your
Yes.
strengths, work on eliminating your weaknesses, whatever.
Weaknesses.
So I don't want to get into a lecture on your podcast, but it's about
But
being
that's
true to yourself.
important.
Yeah, it
And
is.
sitting back and analyzing
Yeah,
how you performed and what could have been done differently,
yeah.
even on a good day, yesterday I was talking to Kantil and he said something really interesting, taking from what we are discussing, that I was asking him, how do you analyze, that what went wrong with certain IPs and certain high budget, big profile events. He's like, why should we only analyze it when it's a failure? You should equally analyze when
Yeah.
something has worked for you. And most important is to sit on that project immediately after you've done it, rather than wait for another day or another opportunity when you want to think back about,
Yeah.
what could have been done better.
I'll give you another interesting learning.
Yeah.
I mean, initially IPs were all about let's create an IP. I'm speaking from an agency's perspective.
Yeah.
Create an IP and we'll own it and we'll build it into something great, and that will increase our value and our, brand power and right?
Yes.
Nothing wrong with that.
Huh.
I remember when we as an agency first mooted the idea of creating an IP that belonged to the brand.
Which is...
And I'm proud to say that 20 years later, all those, or 30 years later, they're still running. Celebrate Bandra.
Yes.
It didn't belong to a brand, but it belonged to the respective associations. That's
right.
one. If you look at the Mahindra Blues Festival,
Yes.
that belongs, we created it, belongs to the Mahindras, and it's still running happily, I must add.
Yes.
Aadyam Theatre.
Mm.
I'm giving you 3, but there are, a fair few more examples.
Yeah.
And at that time, we were told, even by respected, consulting firms, like, what's wrong with y'all? Create something that y'all own because it'll add to your value. And they were right. Nothing wrong with that.
Fair.
But it was a newer take. And we learned because we'd created a couple of musical IPs that we owned, got sponsors, and a brand has a journey like an agency. And when a brand sometimes reaches a certain path in its journey, for whatever reasons, doesn't need that IP anymore.
Yeah.
And so they drop it. And the problem with getting another brand is it's become too synonymous with the earlier brand.
True.
I'm just giving you a example.
Absolutely.
But this is another interesting learning, that we acquired in our journey.
And that's also because you all were always constantly experimenting and you were constantly watching what's happening globally, because I don't think you can come to that level if you're just surrounded by your own thoughts, your own vision, your own little house. Did travel, did meeting, people at a global level, all of that also, do you feel that contributed towards how you all thought and envisaged things?
For sure. One of the key learnings over the last decade or so is that lines have gotten blurred on geographies. What was a Mumbai thing or a Maharashtra thing or an India thing, today is a global thing.
It's a global thing.
I mean, today the, Emirates or, is, people go there for the weekend.
Yeah.
I'm not just talking about travel. I'm talking about even mentality.
So true.
So lines, geographical lines have blurred. Language consumption lines have blurred.
Yeah.
There was a time when English was my go-to. I watched an Aadyam play yesterday, which blew me away. It was Hindi. It was the Hindi version of Sleuth. And I think I understood 95% of it and appreciated it. Now, the point I'm making is that we've got to understand that we're playing on a global scale. And not everyone, like I said, can do everything. So, hey, collaborate. It's easier to say it than to do it. I get that.
Yeah.
But don't be insecure about who you are.
That is it. I think the most critical word is insecurity.
Yes, it is.
Which makes, a person shy away from collaborating.
Yeah. I mean, using that word, in the early days, as you might be aware, we founded EMA.
Yeah.
Which is our national association. And I can remember the late Michael Menezes, God bless him.
Oh.
And me and a couple of others going out on a 5-city, 6-city kind of
Hmm.
national
Hmm.
kind of tour, meeting with agencies to say, why don't we form an association that will represent us, and do good, because we knew there were multiple challenges from licensing and permissions to. And the most common feedback was, yeah, as it is, we are 100 rupees. And as it is, the market is so small.
Yeah.
If we align with other agencies, they will steal our business and all of that. And it took us a while to explain to them that if the market is 1,000 rupees today and you are 10% at 100 rupees,
Huh.
even if your 10% comes down to 5%, and if the market goes up from 1,000 to 100,000,
Excellent.
look at where your P&L goes. I mean, and it was met with a bit of skepticism and, a bit of, recognition.
Yeah.
But look what it is today. I mean, it puts a smile on my heart to see certain projects that have 3 and 4 agencies come together
Yeah.
and create an IP.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get into the micro details and stuff, but
they somehow they found EMA as a common ground, as a
Yeah.
platform when they've met each other, interacted,
yeah,
and found that, okay, I have a gap here, and there's somebody who can actually fill that up.
that is right. That's the power of
Yes.
collaboration,
True. But tell me honestly, Brian, now that, because we are discussing EMA, I've always been intrigued. And I was there as the master of ceremonies for the first EMA, which happened in Goa. And I have this amazing picture, and I feel blessed where all the event managers are there. And it was like the school photograph that was
Right.
taken, and it's such a dear moment for me. But when I was there, I genuinely felt as the industry will grow, so will EMA. And I could be wrong here, but I feel that we didn't grow EMA the way I had imagined it to, because I feel the industry has become so huge, and every small city and town today has a good technical partner, a decent event company. Weddings have grown, sports has grown. But I felt as an association, I didn't feel we've done that well compared to the overall size of the industry, which has grown. Do you feel the same way about it? And do you think it could have been slightly more inclusive, if I'm not sounding too extreme?
I don't know about inclusive. I feel EMA could have been and can still continue to be more effective. But that's easier said than done.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. Because I think there are people who are doing what they can.
Sure.
I mean, you must be aware that today, EMA has signed a treaty, for instance, with 24, at last count, regional associations.
Yeah.
And it's under the banner of Korea.
Yes.
And what blew me away is, if we use the platform of Korea, we're talking about 4,000 plus agencies. And there are initiatives in upskilling or education and in various other areas. Don't forget, running an association like that is in addition to running your own organization.
True.
And how many people, including you, who talk about what we could have done better, are actually willing to put shoulder to wheel and help us do better.
Wow.
I'm saying us because I am a big believer in coming together.
Yeah.
So I'm asking you, Mareesha, while I acknowledge what you've said, how much time are you willing to spend beyond your agency and podcasting with EMA, helping it go forward? And it's a hard answer to a hard question.
Very difficult.
So, I mean, hey, I know it's sounding like an excuse, but it's genuine. I mean, if we can all, in our minds, believe that EMA can do us good or Korea can do us good, and we can all, like I say, put shoulder to wheel. No guarantees, but I do believe we live in a way more fulfilling kind of world of business.
My God. Wow. I'm really going to think about this
Yeah,
more seriously, because I have never really looked at it the way you do. And I do realize as you speak, and when you mention Korea and the regional associations, actually India is so vast,
Yeah.
isn't it?
We have 5,
It's
6, 7 countries in one
in
geography.
one. Honestly.
I mean, you look at food, you look at color of skin, you look at languages spoken, you look
Yeah.
at sensibilities. I mean, they all differ radically.
Yeah.
But yet we are one country. And I always look at the half full rather than the half empty. And, why not look at the half full and work towards, kind of taking it to the brim. Yeah.
And that is how your partnership in Fountainhead also was
Yeah.
such a huge success.
Yeah.
It's much easier, I feel, to be a partner with a family member in business than
Yeah. We broke the rules there. I mean, Neil and me, our family and
Yeah.
married into a family. And
but still,
You know-
it's much easier. And then creatively, everyone is
Yeah.
there. Independently, y'all are very strong individuals having a mind of your
I mean,
own.
look at it now. If I'm allowed now to really indulge myself, and I'm saying it, I mean, Jairam and Jaishankar and Neil,
Yeah,
Hyperlink.
yeah.
Owen is the head of Book My Show
I
Live.
know, isn't it
Varun
amazing?
is heading, District or Insider Live.
Yeah,
And I can go on naming people who are running their own organizations
yeah,
now.
yeah.
And and to me, that is payback.
Oh,
I mean this, maybe I'm sounding a little emotional and indulgent, but hey,
yeah,
it's real.
yeah. It's
I'm not saying anything that's not true.
Mm,
And that's what even an association does, like we did in an organization,
yeah,
by not being insecure, empowering our people
true.
as an organization, and like EMA or Korea.
Yeah.
If we empower each other, the market grows.
Mm,
And when the market grows, like I told you in that initial example,
yeah,
we grow.
yes.
So I know it sounds all, visionary, and yes, it is.
It-
but unless
but
you,
it is implemented also. It's not just a philosophy you're throwing.
No.
You've lived that. So
yeah, and that's why I'm so vociferous about it, because I've reaped the benefits,
yeah,
both on an individual agency front as also
yeah,
on a national front, as far as the association is concerned.
yeah, yeah. Tell me what would you kind of, when you think back of your entire tenure of 30 years as Fountainhead, as a team, what would be that one event which would like bring that smile on your face or make you still feel proud that, oh, we did that? Perhaps because it was too challenging or it was too large scale.
The one bit that I really feel good about is the one I just spoke about having the gumption to create an IP for a brand.
Yeah.
And so it stretches from Mahindra Blues to Celebrate Bandra to Aadyam Theatre.
Yeah.
So I can't pinpoint one, but the broader and the larger decision to actually have the gumption to create something that belonged
Hmm.
to the brand or to the client
Hmm.
is really something that I hold on to dearly.
Hmm.
It's the one thing that I think we did differently. The second bit is we also flirted with various businesses.
Hmm.
And it wasn't only forward integration, like we empowered people internally by starting Orange Juice Entertainment,
Yes.
where we actually gave people who worked with us as colleagues then equity.
Hmm.
And they went on to become equity holders in the mother company many years later.
Oh,
Yes.
I was not aware of this. I, of course, knew of Orange Juice, but equity giving was
Yeah.
wow.
I don't want to get into names and
No
details,
worries.
but
Then who would have guided you all to go into all of
it was
this?
just instinct. And in fact, we were sometimes asked about how astute or not astute we were by doing things like that. But
Yeah. I guess it would
we
have
did
been the first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, that was one example. We started back in the day, we started a digital arm. I'm talking 15, 18 years ago, we started a digital arm. We started the IP arm, which was Orange Juice. We started an activation arm. We
My
started a travel and mice arm.
Oh, wow.
And like I said earlier, don't try to be everything to everyone. And we realized in some areas that we were pushing boundaries and we retracted. But I think another clever thing we did back then was backward integration. So while all of this is forward integration, we did a bit of backward integration and we started, along with another person, a production company.
Oh,
Yeah, that company still exists.
okay.
It's the acronym is TPT, or Production Terminus,
Okay.
which did production. And I'm talking again 20 years ago, 25 years
Wow.
ago. Yeah, thereabouts.
Hmm.
I haven't done the calculation, but
So what was left now? Artist management.
yeah,
Why didn't the artist in you want to have a division for that?
yeah. I'm sure that we thought about it and spoke about it, but like I keep saying, you can't be everything to everyone, and you
Yeah.
need the right people for those roles. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why I take great pride in saying the names that I said, because they were the right people. They've gone on
Yes.
to carve a niche for
Yes.
themselves. It put a smile on my heart. Again, I'm using the phrase over and over again. Once at a couple of years ago at a conference, and again, I won't get into micro details, but
Yeah.
there were five, including the a person conducting the panel discussion, and 4 out of the 5 were ex Fountainheaders.
No way.
Yeah. And
What
it's
a
a great feeling. It's a great feeling.
I'm
It's a great
sure.
feeling.
I'm sure.
And I stood there and I'm going, yeah.
We did well.
Yeah.
Tell me, when we see a moment, and today when we see Hyperlink and we see, Owen changing the game for all of us, as in the space of concerts, you got into the space of mentoring and training, which I know is extremely exhausting a
Yes.
space to be in. It, for me, I feel that could have largely been a show must go on moment. When you all are together, you all are one of the few companies, event companies in India, that gets valued, that gets its due, and then it also sees the end of the road. How did you kind of process it? Do you still go back to that? Do you feel something could have been done differently, or do you avoid thinking about that chapter?
No, there's always retrospective learnings,
Yeah.
which you can't do anything about, some of that, and some of which you can do something about. But I think, again, what is precious is that we celebrate each other to the day. I mean, if I'm talking about looking at a panel of 4 out of 5 people,
Yeah.
it's because I feel extremely proud that those people are who they are,
Yes.
right? And it pays back in a way that is really difficult to explain, the kind of joy. And we don't look at each other as competitors. Yeah, of course, there are moments
Sure.
when someone might fiercely disagree with, let's say, my thought. And that's where I need to sit back and say, I need to listen to them or him or her and figure. And we failed. I speak for myself. I failed. There are times when you're so preoccupied
Yeah.
with the larger mandate
Yeah.
that you tend to kind of ignore, consciously, subconsciously,
Brilliant.
sentiments, professional sentiments,
Yes.
business sentiments, personal sentiments. And I am admitting it, that I failed. But it's about then being honest with yourself.
Oh, how can you be so courageous
You know,
to say that? Oh God, it takes a lot, Brian, because so many times we are clouded by our thoughts and our perceptions about ourselves, and he did wrong, she did wrong. Destiny had something written, but here you are, ready to analyze it. And
so I have a question. Does me admitting to where I went wrong make me a lesser person?
no.
You have my answer.
Yeah.
You have my answer. In fact, might I add, that I think people will listen to you a little more intently because of your honesty.
Yeah.
People will maybe respect you a little bit more because of your honesty.
Yeah.
People will listen to you more attentively because of your honesty. I won't say par for the course, but it becomes easier.
Yeah. I guess it'll make me feel a little lighter.
Yeah, not
on
only
my
that, I'll
head.
tell you, it'll set a relationship between you and whoever that will be very difficult,
Yeah.
to kind of erode after that.
Wow.
Because these are, I don't have an adjective for it, But when you have meaningful conversations that go beyond the conventional,
Mhm.
you create trust. You create a relationship. I was once told that relationships are most important to build.
Hmm.
But once you've built them,
Yeah.
they are forever. And that can be used in a personal, kind of world that you live in, or in a professional world that you live in.
Hmm.
And I've seen it.
Hmm.
Of course, there are ups and downs. Of course, we all make our mistakes, starting with me. But can we be honest and overcome them?
Yeah.
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 And I'm not saying things that are up there, and, yeah, gyan. And no,
Yeah.
it's real.
It's real.
It's real. Do it. We'll talk.
We will.
Yeah.
Trust me. I think this is so important because I don't think we, come across too many people who can have the courage to do what you do and say what you say. So it's always a nice feeling to know that, okay, I can also be on that side.
Shall I shift now?
You have been so good with giving interviews and taking interviews, and this is your home ground. This is
Yeah.
your home ground.
Yeah, I've got to admit it is. I told you I love the lights
Yeah.
and the microphones. Yeah.
Oh God.
You have me right where I want to be, lady. What
Yeah.
can I say?
Yeah, nothing. My lucky day.
Two of us.
Tell me, Brian, whom besides your, partners at business, whom else do you consider as like your closest friends from the industry, and who kind of you like to either hang out with, or kind of you may have shared your ideas and thoughts with, because you think that this is someone who can.
That's a bit of a tough one. I can't really point out to any singular names and
Okay.
stuff, but
Don't
From-
worry, nobody's
from a-
going to feel bad.
no, I'm not concerned too much about that. It did cross my mind, I must admit, but no, I'm not. So, for instance, I mentioned Michael Menezes to me.
Yeah,
I mean, he's moved on onto that bigger gig in the sky.
absolutely.
But my respect for him and my
Yeah.
my connect with Michael goes on to the day.
Yeah.
And his wife and daughter and son, who
Yeah.
Avik, who's still
Avik.
doing the thing. But
Yeah.
Michael is one such person who, he was in advertising before that, and he'd
Yes.
kind of very openly pass on his learnings and.
Mm.
I mean, he's someone I've known forever.
Mm.
And there are other people like the boys from Wishcraft, for instance.
Yeah.
We don't meet regularly, but
Yeah.
I mean, I've known Sabas from the time he was a journalist, and Andre and Viraf.
Really?
Oh yeah,
Before they created.
way before Wishcraft.
Oh.
Yeah, Sabas was in the afternoon, and Andre was a part of a family that I was very close to, the Timmins family, and knew a fair few of his siblings. And I knew Viraf from the time he used to mix music.
Oh God.
Yeah, so we go back. So there's a bit of a vibe there. We don't meet very often,
Yeah,
I must
sure.
admit. But these are people whom I connected over the years with. Michael, like I said. And then, of course, the other doyens of the industry that I believe have contributed a lot. I mean, I've hung with, again, don't meet that often, but Atul Nath, let's say, Samit Garg.
Yeah.
I've known Samit from when his uncle would run a production company.
Yes. Yes.
And,
Lucknow.
Yes, and
Yeah.
I've known them, Samit and gang from
Wow.
that time. So these are people just by virtue of the fact that we've hung out, and I'm sure. I must say Venkat, of
Yes.
DNA,
Yes.
actually one of the first kids on the block
Yeah.
as far as DNA Networks is concerned, and I think they were the first company, and they were the first company that really bought big scale
Yeah.
to the country by
To
way
the
of concerts.
country. Yeah.
Yeah, so these are people who've resonated with me. I mean, I could go on and on because with
I know,
different
the
folks
list
come
is-
different strokes. I mean,
The
so
list is endless.
it's difficult. But yeah, I mean, like I said, a lot of the relationships are meaningful, Mareesha, and
Yeah.
I still hold on to most of them. I think the world is changing as far as digital is concerned. So you take artificial intelligence, for instance.
Yeah.
And I know it's a cliched thing to say,
Sure.
but cliches become cliches for a reason.
Yeah.
So I do believe we need to. I remember during the pandemic very clearly, people telling us that the experiential business is over. Is it?
True.
No. But can we use our learnings to enhance?
Hmm.
I mean, I don't need to tell you this, that what change was happening in 20 years earlier then started to happen in 10 years and 5. And today change is happening on a weekly, monthly, annual
Yeah.
basis.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
can we use technology
Hmm.
to further effectiveness of our objectives? I do believe we need to kind of take that look inwards first.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah. And
We're
then
all
work on
just
it.
following each other.
We are
and-
conformists,
Yeah.
which to me is, it holds us back.
Yes.
Nothing wrong
Yeah.
with learning from the market around you if that is conformism. But being what Mareesha is not necessarily my answer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
She has certain strengths, she's capitalizing on it. I need to take a look at myself, do an analysis, figure who I am as an individual, as an organization, and then look at the environment around me and figure how can I become a bigger, better, more effective organization.
Yeah.
I'm giving you broad strokes.
Completely.
Because like I said, different strokes, different folks. Some agencies might veer towards, I mean, the biggest opportunity is in social at the moment.
Yeah.
Be it weddings
Oh
or whatever.
my.
I mean, it's staggering.
Oh my. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And there doesn't seem to be
I
an
mean,
end.
600,000 crores, really? Out of which 300,000 crores plus is social spend?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
I mean,
it's
like,
insane.
wow.
Yeah.
What am I saying? The same thing happens with Scott, who's my younger son, who's into content creation and stuff,
God.
audiovisual content creation. They see way more than we see, or I used to see, in the same thing. They're more perceptive. They're more perceptive.
Yeah.
They're more decided.
Yes, they are.
They're convinced. They're fiercely opinionated.
Yes. Yes.
Now, that can be a good thing or a bad thing, but it's a move in the right direction.
Mm.
They're fiercely opinionated. They don't want to waste their time
Mm.
and say, I don't need to watch something for 1 hour to decide how good or bad it is.
Yeah.
Right, wrong, time will tell. But
Yeah.
I like the fact that they are crisp about.
True. True.
So again, it's about the half full versus the half empty.
Actually.
I'd like to focus on the half full and look at all the positives that today's youth have.
Yeah. And one thing that you would hope that they probably would change and mold to not let this fear side take over in a negative way. What do you think?
Yeah, so
The way we probably do our parenting, or it could be in the way, because opportunities are much easier found by them today than the struggle that we may have had.
Yeah, I think as us,
Yeah.
we need to give them or allow for them to be who they are.
Mm.
Guide them, mentor them when required. Okay, so allow them to grow.
That is tricky,
Yeah.
right?
I want you to be an MBA. I want you to be an engineer.
Yeah.
He's going to live with that engineering degree
Yeah.
and certificate. Or she is going to. Is he or she comfortable with that? Or is it something you wish to be and couldn't be, and that's
Couldn't
why you
be.
want them to be?
Yeah.
Some of them will start to take their own businesses to the next
Yeah.
level. But then you can do what I did and watch them on a panel and say,
Absolutely.
yeah, freaking who, I know them.
I
Hey.
know that.
Yeah.
And eventually end up also collaborating with them
Yeah.
on something. Why
yeah.
not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yes, it happens. It happens. I mean, I consult for, a conglomerate, the Aditya Birla Group,
Mm.
and I'm working with Book My Show. I'm working with Hyperlink. I'm working with a whole lot of other people, Insider or,
Yeah.
District.
Yeah.
I am working with them.
We're all here to stay.
Yeah.
And yet the show must go on.
Yeah, the show will go on. The show must go on. And pardon my optimism, the show will go on.
Oh my. Tell me one song that resonates, and you'll have to sing this because
No,
you
please
just
don't
mentioned
do this.
you sang last week, so you'll
Don't
have
do
to
this to
sing.
me.
One line.
Don't do this to me.
One song.
No, I've
that-
always been. There are. I
Give me a
can't-
couple of songs, since you
You're
don't
a tough
like
nut,
to.
aren't you? Um,
Hemant is saying yes, yes,
yeah,
yes.
no. One of the songs that not just to me, but I think globally
Ah,
has been a game changer for many people is Frank Sinatra's "My Way."
hmm.
I love people who live life their way. And another song that I kind of resonate with big time
Yeah.
is Elton John's and Bernie Taupin, who wrote the lyrics, but Skyline Pigeon, which talks about turn me loose, let me fly, and let me discover the world around me, take off those shackles. I mean, it's a pigeon
Wow.
that wants to be let loose and wants to fly and see the world and experience the world. So, I mean, I can go on
You
and on.
are-
I'm a bit of a music junkie, and lyrics have always been my go-to. So,
Absolutely. And I see you still flying high.
thank
And
you.
I just love this about you, Brian. This has been so inspiring and so real, most importantly.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
real.
I'll hold on to the real, because there's joy in being real
Yeah.
rather than certainly not pretending who you're not.
Yeah.
I love indulgences. Don't get me wrong. I told you I enjoy the lights.
Yeah.
I enjoy
And-
being paid compliments too.
You are a star.
But if
and-
that defines who I am, then no. Yeah, but no, thank you.
No,
Thank
no.
you. I'll hold on to that, Mareesha.
Thank you for
And,
your time and thank you for this
my pleasure.
amazing time.
My pleasure. My pleasure.